At the start of the 20th century, the world was a very different place than it is today. Women couldn't vote, many couldn't own property, and they never received equal pay for equal work. They were denied education, excluded from science, barred from leadership, and expected to obey the quiet rules of domesticity. The idea that a woman could be a war hero, a pilot, a politician, a scientist, or even simply speak out, was not just unlikely. It was unthinkable. But even in those early years, something was shifting. A pulse beneath the surface. A restlessness that began in whispers and started to grow. This is the story of the women who redefined gender in a patriarchal society. If the world wouldn't change for them, they would have to change the world. Welcome to Animarta Historia, breathing life into historic photographs from around the world to remind us of how we used to live, where we came from, and what made us who we are today. In this three-part series, we are reanimating photographs of fearless women who defied the odds and redefined what it means to be a woman in a man's world. Part 1. Pioneers and Trailblazers. High in the clouds and crags of Andean peaks, Annie Smithpeck refused to climb through life quietly. In trousers, not skirts, against the norms of her era, she scaled summits and planted flags where no man or woman had before. With each ascent, she lifted expectations of what a woman could endure. An ardent supporter of women's suffrage, an intrepid mountaineer and highly accomplished public speaker, she lived a life of adventure, following her passions across the world. Sexism in sport is nothing new. It was tough to find anyone who would climb with a woman, and those that did agree gave her a tough time. One group of guides deliberately cut her ropes after she'd crossed a crevasse field and left her to it. They were apparently stunned when she later returned to camp, alive and well. On May 16, 1975, Junko Tabei became the first woman to summit Everest. She rose above not just a mountain, but a culture that told her to stay home. She climbed through avalanche, exhaustion, and doubt until she stood where only sky remained. In 1969, 6 years before her record-breaking summit, she founded Japan's Ladies Climbing Club, a female-only mountaineering group motivated by exclusion from male alpine associations. Ida Laura Pfeiffer packed her compass, her courage, and little else. A mother-turned-explorer, she set sail alone, twice around the globe, through jungles, over mountains, across forbidden borders, all at a time when most women weren't even permitted to travel alone. She mapped what others feared, documented what empires ignored. Yet the Royal Geographical Society refused her, not for lack of merit, but for the simple fact that she was a woman. She did not rage, she recorded, and the world, through her journals, listened. Nellie Bly was the first to go around the world in less than 80 days. She proved all the doubters wrong as she set out to prove that a woman could circle the globe faster than fiction, and before any man before her. With nothing but a small bag and relentless will, she raced across oceans, continents, and every limit the world placed on her. 72 days, that's all it took. While the world still doubted women's intellect, she outpaced a legend. Annie Londonderry was a Jewish mother of three in corseted, conservative 1890s Boston before she climbed onto her 42-pound Columbia bicycle and set the wheels of revolution turning. The world wagered that no woman could circle the globe by bicycle. Annie took the challenge and pedaled straight into the history books. Dressed in bloomers, sometimes even men's riding suits, she crossed continents, oceans, and ideas of what womanhood meant. She sold photographs of herself, pitched products, became a rolling advertisement. She turned spectacle into survival and turned herself into the show. Annie didn't just travel the world. She transformed it with every push of the pedal. Not a trained athlete, not a noble woman, just a mother with grit, gears, and a grin that defied everything Victorian society told her she could not do. Her ride wasn't only around the world. It was out of the narrow frame the world tried to keep her. In the sun-scorched deserts and tangled politics of the Middle East, Gertrude Bell drew borders and bent policy with a scholar's pen and a spy's resolve. She was a builder of nations, fluent in Arabic, Persian, and diplomacy, respected by kings, yet dismissed in boardrooms. Still, she shaped modern Iraq, and history bowed to her intellect. Single-minded and fiercely intelligent, Bell found peace and fulfillment as a desert traveler in the Middle East. She was the first woman to gain a first in history at Oxford, the first Western woman to cross Arabia, and was instrumental in the creation of modern Iraq. Bell's formidable achievements through her life were made when most women weren't expected to be independent or intellectual. Ada Lovelace saw the future in numbers. The daughter of a poet and a mathematician, she imagined machines not just as calculators, but as creators, capable of composing music and weaving patterns. In 1843, she wrote what is now considered the first computer program, long before computers existed. Her vision, nearly a century ahead of its time, earned her a place in history as the world's first computer programmer. Hedy Lamarr lit up the silver screen, but her brightest legacy was born far from Hollywood. Between film sets, she co-invented a frequency-hopping technology designed to shield torpedoes from enemy interference. It was overlooked in her time, but decades later became the foundation for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. Glamorous and brilliant, Lamarr redefined what it meant to be a woman of science and made the world more connected than she could ever know. Margaret Hamilton stood beside a tower of handwritten code taller than she was, software that would guide Apollo 11 to the moon. She didn't wear a lab coat or a cape, but she was a hero of gravity and logic, a pioneer of spaceflight and possibility, and an example to all women that intelligence is not defined by gender. Margaret Bourke-White raised a camera like a sword. She was a true pioneer. The first female war correspondent, the first foreign photographer allowed to document Soviet industry, and the first woman photographer for Life magazine, she documented horrors and hope with fearless honesty. Her lens captured what others looked away from and made it impossible to forget. Margaret defied boundaries with her camera, whether perched on skyscrapers or embedded on the front lines of war. She showed us that photography wasn't just art. It was power, courage, and a voice. In 1907, Annette Kellerman was arrested for indecency in Boston, Massachusetts. She wasn't naked, but was in fact wearing a one-piece bathing suit that revealed her arms, legs, and neck. A stark contrast to the full-body swimwear that was standard for women of that era. But she refused to hide her body to appease outdated modesty. She dove into oceans and into headlines, not for spectacle, but for liberation. She was a swimmer, a performer, and a pioneer for women's physical freedom. She also was a pioneer in her silent film career, becoming the first major film star to appear totally nude on screen in A Daughter of the Gods. Gertrude Ederle, dubbed the Queen of the Waves by the press, was the first woman to swim across the English Channel in 1926, and she did it faster than any man before her and at only 20 years of age. She was told it couldn't be done by a woman, and then she shattered the men's record by nearly 2 hours. In an interview, Ederle told reporters,
"People said women couldn't swim the channel. I proved they could."
She swam through frigid waters and choppy waves for 14 hours and 34 minutes, using a crawl stroke that was faster than the breaststroke typically used by long-distance swimmers at the time. This girl was more than just an athlete. She was a symbol of perseverance, defiance, and the boundless potential of women in sport. She was 63 years old, widowed, and a schoolteacher by trade. But Annie Edson Taylor had a point to make, that a woman could conquer anything, even Niagara Falls. In a barrel of her own design, she plunged into the churning abyss and emerged bruised but alive. Not for fame, not for fortune, but to defy the limits the world tried to place on her. Maud Wagner, the tattoo artist, was inked in courage and defiance, carving out a place in a world that didn't make space for women like her. Her body became her story. Her art became her armor. In an era when tattooed women were a rarity, she often exhibited herself as a tattooed lady in circuses and sideshows, which added to her notoriety. She defied both gender expectations and beauty standards of the time, paving the way for future women in body art and personal expression. In an era when the skies were still largely a man's domain, one woman set her sights on the horizon and flew beyond it. Amy Johnson, a typist turned aviator, captured the world's imagination in 1930, when she became the first woman to fly solo from England to Australia. Armed with little more than a second-hand Gypsy Moth plane she named Jason, a compass, and a fierce resolve, Johnson navigated 11,000 miles through storms, mechanical failures, and the daunting loneliness of the open sky. Her journey was not just a feat of aviation, it was a declaration. A woman could do this. A woman did do this. Though she vanished, Amy Johnson's legacy remains vividly alive in the history of aviation and in the spirit of every woman who dares to chart her own course. But before Amy Johnson, there was Baronne Raymonde de la Roche. She was the first, graceful, daring, resolute. In 1910, she became the first woman in the world to earn a pilot's license. Her plane was fragile, but her will was not. With every ascent, she showed the world a woman could rise without permission. Amelia Earhart followed, fierce and iconic, with wind in her hair and a map in her heart. She didn't just cross oceans, she crossed into history. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, she spoke not only to daring, but to dignity. Her disappearance became a myth. With her courage, determination, and signature leather jacket, she inspired generations to dream beyond the horizon. Though her final flight in 1937 ended in mystery, her legacy still soars. Before the world knew Amelia, there was Harriet Quimby, elegant, fearless, and the first American woman to touch the sky on her own terms. Draped in her signature plum flying suit, she defied gravity and society in equal measure. In 1911, she earned her pilot's license when few believed a woman could even fly. And just 1 year later, she became the first woman to cross the English Channel. Valentina Tereshkova lifted not just into the sky, but beyond it. A factory worker turned cosmonaut, she became the first woman in space in 1963. For 71 hours, she orbited Earth alone, proof that humanity's boldest frontiers need not be navigated by men alone. Decades later, in 1984, Anna Fisher became the first mother to fly into space. Cradling her daughter in one arm, dressed in a NASA suit, she became an icon of science and motherhood in one frame. She proved that space was no place for inequality, that gender plays no role outside of our world. Back down to earth, on the tennis court, Billie Jean King wasn't playing a match, she was fighting a battle. In 1973, Billie Jean played Bobby Riggs in a match dubbed the Battle of the Sexes. She beat him in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3, 6-3, and earned the winner-take-all prize of $100,000, proving that equality isn't theoretical, it's winnable. One serve, one swing, one slam at a time. After the match, she said,
"I thought it would set us back 50 years if I didn't win that match. It would ruin the women's tour and affect all women's self-esteem."
Althea Gibson was the first black woman to win Wimbledon and the US Open. She was grace under pressure, elegance under scrutiny, And when the cheers were scarce, she played harder. She didn't ask to be the first, she simply was. Leola N. King stood in the streets of Washington, D.C., whistle in hand, directing traffic as America's first female traffic cop. In 1918, she brought order to the chaos and presence to a place no woman had stood before. Authority wore a skirt that day, and the city obeyed. Marie Curie glowed with curiosity and courage. The first person, man or woman, to win 2 Nobel Prizes, she unlocked the secrets of the atom while the world still questioned her place in the lab. She handled radiation before we understood its danger, carrying brilliance like a torch, even as it burned her hands. Pearl S. Buck gave voice to silenced lives. Her novels peeled back cultural barriers with empathy and grace. She brought Asia to American readers and was the first woman to earn a Nobel Prize in literature. Not for fantasy, but for truth. In stories, she stitched compassion across continents and proved that men weren't the only ones capable of winning such accolades. These women didn't merely blaze trails, they transformed the map. They changed what art could say, what science could see, and what womanhood could mean. Part 2 of this series is now available, titled Women at War. It features more fearless women who redefined gender and changed history forever.